Dr. Julie Exline, President Godley, Fuller faculty and students, dear brothers and sisters. So glad to be here to respond to Dr. Julie Exline's lecture on supernatural attributions, how people perceive messages from God, the devil, and the human spirits. I'm grateful to Dr. Amos Young, Dean of SMT, for giving me this opportunity to do the faculty response in this year's integration seminar. With two schools, the School of Mission and Theology and School of Psychology and Marriage and Family Therapy, Fuller is better equipped to offer integration seminars. Interdisciplinary approaches and integration of ideas can allow for a deeper understanding of society and better engagement in God's mission. Thanks to Dr. Brad Strawn and Chandel Gibbs for organizing this event and constantly communicating with us over the last couple of weeks. Dr. Exline is an expert in the areas of psychology of religion and spirituality. I do not have adequate expertise in the academic study of mental health issues and psychotherapy to engage with Dr. Exline's presentation critically. So my attempt here is to use the tools available in religious studies to understand supernatural attributions and make a missiological response. In one of my previous courses, I used Stanford anthropologist Tanya Luhrmann's book, When God Talks Back, Understanding the American Evangelical Relationship with God. Using anthropological and psychological theories, Luhrmann studied the effect that intensely practiced prayer can have on the mind of evangelical Christians in America. It reshaped my understanding of the history of evangelicalism and the spirituality of evangelical communities who experience God as intimately and lovingly present in their lives. In her book, Luhrmann argued that experiencing God intimately and hearing God's voice is a skill, and evangelical Christians train themselves to experience God vividly. I come from a Pentecostal background. When I grew up, I too heard the expressions among my family members and friends pertaining to divine attributions, such as God told me, Jesus spoke to me, and the Holy Spirit guided me. Prophet and prophetesses speaking God's message into people's lives are commonly found in my church. We also emphasize the miracles and healing. Exorcism of an evil spirit had been randomly reported among Pentecostals. Generally, members of my church read Bible daily, especially early in the morning, before starting their daily chores, to hear God's voice and to discern God's will for their lives. In our church services, people often testify that God spoke to them in various ways and answered their prayers. In South Asian subcontinent, it is common among both Christians and non-Christians to make supernatural attributions. It is collectively shared across cultural communities and not limited to a particular religious tradition. Muslims believe that the natural tendency of human being, the word is in Arabic is fitra, is to submit to God and be guided by Him. Hindus visit temples to be seen by God or darshan. Their world also included the presence of the departed souls. So in their family shrine, they offer food daily to them food daily to propitiate them. Seeking out mediums are also commonly found among South Asians. Praying to saints is practiced by all, including Orthodox Christians. South Asian worldviews are not devoid of spirits. Every place, including the trees and rivers, is infused with the spirit. So we often hear stories about people using talisman and spells to control or ward off evil spirits. Pentecostals also would avoid crossing places infused with spirits, such as Hindu temple premises, other religious sites, and cemeteries. Supernatural forces operate in more subtle ways in the daily lives of South Asians, irrespective of their religious persuasions. Dr. Exline has mentioned that making supernatural attributions provide people with powerful coping resources. God is the only source of hope, security, and comfort in the midst of utter helplessness. This is the story of millions of women and poor people worldwide who suffer without an adequate regular income, social security, and employment opportunities. Refugees and immigrants who cross national boundaries in search of better lives also share similar stories. So here I'm reminded of my mother's ability to hear the voice of God, which sustained us to navigate challenging times when I was growing up in India. So, as Dr. Exline explained, supernatural attributions help people make challenging life decisions concerning careers, relationships, and health issues. It is reassuring for people to believe that God is interested in their personal circumstances and ready to intervene at appropriate times. So I do not think that we can conclude that the ability to hear from God is a sign of mental illness. Along the same line, we should neither dismiss the perception of people that they are tormented by the devil. So, however, I argue that with modern sensibilities, we have a proclivity to dismiss the claims of supernatural attributions. We live in a secular world, which is a disenchanted world, devoid of all kinds of magic and spirits. The secular world therefore marginalized religion and made science the criteria to measure the credibility of any claims, including religious claims. It is implied that religious claims or spiritual experiences are considered personal and need to be confined to private realms of life. So, if we want to bring back our religious claims to the public sphere, it needs to be scrutinized and verified by science. While religious claims are subjective, scientific methods are considered accurate and objective. So, our proclivity is to suspect the credibility of people's claims that they hear from God, the devil, and human spirits. I would like to argue that it is possible for us to interpret the claims of making supernatural attributions as an indication of a spirituality that suits the conditions of modernity. I have noticed a tendency among those who make supernatural attributions to be inward looking. In their understanding, God only cares for them, their family, and their church, and which limits their interaction with the real world outside. Such a worldview is rooted in individualism and social isolation, which are the characteristics of modernity. Making supernatural attributions also lead to othering people in order to marginalize and dominate them. It makes people judgmental of those outside their community who are portrayed as evil or demonic or away from God and destined for damnation. Christian nationalism in the US and religious nationalism in other countries taught us that othering people and stereotyping them could be dangerous. Dr. Exline mentioned that for people who make supernatural attributions, the world is a field of an encounter between good and evil spirits. They understand life is a cosmic battle between good and evil people and heaven and hell. Such dualistic thinking is the foundation for European discourse on modernity. It places men over women, human beings over nature, and colonizer over colonized. Consequently, it legitimizes the exploitation of natural resources, enslavement of human beings, and colonization of the East. Dualistic thinking is problematic because it understands reality in black and white terms, accentuates Satan, and make it an equal force to God. It makes people fear Satan sometimes more than God. According to Exline, seeing the devil as active in the world could make the world seem like a scary place, which feeds the distressing emotions of guilt, fear, punishment, and rejection. This explains why spiritual warfare and deliverance become important topics among evangelical Christians. It downplays the human ability to do good, aims for perfection, and challenges evil. Accentuating evil or Satan will not help us to understand the structural forces of greed and capitalism that destroy God's creation and pave the way for poverty, injustice, and corruption. I'm not arguing that spirituality that germinates supernatural attributions can only be relevant to modern societies. I have already stated that making supernatural attributions has been commonly found in South Asian and other traditional societies. However, in traditional societies, people exercise supernatural attributions within a community setup. Here it is significant to note that supernatural attributions functioned to enforce the order by creating a social hierarchy in those societies. So, making supernatural attributions involved exercising power, or women and other marginalized section of society who occupied the bottom of the social ladder. This explains why modern societies decentered religion in an attempt to create democratic societies with the promise of social equality for all. However, decentering religion in the name of political correctness eroded the source of moral strength and spiritual well being of people in the modern societies. So, exercising supernatural attributions in a community setup has the potential to challenge secularism, the tendency to make science the sole criterion for understanding the truth. It will open up the doors for religious claims to return to the public sphere and assume its rightful place in society. It will help us to embrace everyone, irrespective of religion, race, and gender, as the children of the same God. It will also lay the foundation for an ethical system based on love, justice, and peace. So, in conclusion, dismissing supernatural attributions is not a viable option. If so, how can we deal with it? We have already learned that supernatural attributions empower individuals to cope with difficult situations. So the question is, how can we help those individuals who have the ability to hear God's voice to open up themselves to listen to the cries of God's creation and other human beings who are created in the image and likeness of God? How can we help them escape social isolation, embrace the world created by God, and care for the poor and marginalized? How can we enable them to tear down the wall built to separate communities based on gender, race, and religion? In fact, all prophets and religious leaders were visionaries who could hear God's voice. However, they exercised their ability to hear God's voice to make the world a better place to live and work. So, making supernatural attributions within a community framework is always healthy and liberating. It will challenge the status quo and establish justice. How can we empower people to do it? So, here I believe that the churches and theological education can play a role. Thank you.